Well, welcome back to Charge with Confidence and Convert Your Expertise to Cash. And this section of the training, part 4, is about creating an empowered money mindset. So, in this section, I want to address something almost everyone struggles with, and that is a fear based or lack mentality, especially when it comes to money. We all have money stories, meaning we all grew up in families that had certain ideas about money. If we have never challenged those ideas, chances are we have adopted them as our own. But some of those embedded ideas are not working for us. We can get into cycles and patterns of being broke or never having enough or feeling we never have enough. And so when we're feeling this, we can put pressure on our clients in subconscious ways. It's an energy. Remember I said thoughts are energy? Well, this next part of the training is aimed at looking at some of the common patterns of lack and shifting them into a more abundant framework, okay? All right, here we go. A common occurrence that I have seen a lot is being conflicted about how people should make money. This memory actually came back to me a couple of years ago. And when I saw it, I immediately understood why I was so conflicted about making money. So in my memory, my memories are kind of sketchy sometimes, but it's the memory that influences you. It's not necessarily the actual occurrence, but it's how you remember it. So keep that in mind. A lot of times we go back into our childhood and we have a memory and we tell our sibling about what we remembered and they're like, well, I didn't see it like that. We all have filters up. So given that, this is my memory. My dad and my grandfather and my mother are all standing together in our dining room and they're all yelling at each other. Background, my dad was an entrepreneur, home builder, which is part of the reason why I wanted to go into home building. And my grandfather was also an entrepreneur. He had owned lots of different businesses. My mom wasn't working out of the home at the time, but she liked steady money. The problem was my dad did not bring in steady money, so there were often arguments. My grandfather always had money. He paid for everything in cash. He always had this wad of cash in his pocket. I'll never forget it. Every time he took out money, there was just a stack of money in his pocket, where you'd ask your parents for money and they never had it. Well, I love my grandfather. I was his favorite. I just love my grandfather. Not many people felt the same way, and I later learned that he was known to be on the shady side, which means I don't really know how he made his money, but he always had a lot of it. So I caught the idea as time went on that people didn't trust him, but they didn't respect him. So I don't want to say that. They were kind of intimidated by him, actually. Well, in reaction to my grandfather and how he did things, my dad decided he wanted to do things differently. He wanted to have a noble and honorable business. He wanted to do things right. But he was often broke, and he even went bankrupt more than once. So my grandfather was always on his case. I think my grandfather looked at my dad as kind of weak. Well, in this memory, where everybody's yelling at each other, and my grandfather's actually calling my dad some very bad names. My dad's yelling back at him. My mom's in the mix too, yelling. And so I'm like this little kid looking at all this and wondering what is going on here. I had no clarity back then. But as I looked at the memory again just recently, maybe a couple years ago, I realized that I had these people I loved all yelling at each other about how money should be made and handled. And they all had different approaches. They all had different belief systems. So, you know what? I grew up wondering, is it better to be noble and honest like my dad, but be broke? Or shady and shrewd like my grandpa, but always have money? Or maybe I should just get a job like my mom wanted me to do. Do you see how this can produce a conflict and a lot of confusion inside? So every time you're about making money, whether it's in a job or a business, you feel stuck. You're just kind of like you go in one direction and then you pull back and then you turn around and go another direction. It's confusing. So until I really understood this, it was brought to my attention and challenged, the conflict just produced this confusion and insecurity in me. Maybe you have had your own conflicts, your own internal conflicts produced by things that you saw as a kid. Well, after I saw this memory, I realized I had a choice. We all have a choice. Awareness is key to helping you make the choice. Otherwise, you're just kind of led around by it, clueless, right? So my choice was this. I could just continue in this space of confusion, or I could forgive them all. Because in some ways, they had hurt me. Now, they didn't mean to. They didn't know they were doing that, right? But because they all had different ways, they were implanting in me, unknowingly, wrong beliefs about money. We need healing a lot of times about our stories so that we can succeed, so we can become prosperous and be the people we're meant to be. So then I decided, I get to write my own story. I get to say how I want to be. It doesn't have to be an either or. I can be strategic without being shady. I can be noble without giving away the store. I get to say how I want to be, how I want to make money. And once I made that proclamation, I wrote it out, something shifted in me. So I encourage you, take the time. Ask God to reveal any memories from wherever they come for whatever conflict may be within you. Write it out. And then forgive. And then write your own story. You get to choose. Isn't that powerful? You get to choose your own money story. Choose an empowered money story. Choose who it is you want to be and be that. Now, this is similar to the next one, but slightly different. Something else you may have a little difficulty with regarding your money story is that you are conflicted about people who make a lot of money. You hear this in all kinds of languaging, Sometimes we have opinions about those people. We might think they're greedy or selfish or uncaring, and we don't want to be like that. I'll never forget one day that when I was traveling, I was in the back of a taxi talking to the taxi cab driver about business and about, entrepreneurship. And he made a statement to me and he said, "Oh no, I never want to make a lot of money. I don't trust myself." That speaks to an opinion he has about what he thinks will happen to him if he makes a lot of money. What kind of person he's going to become. Well, I didn't want to be like my grandpa, but I didn't want to be like my dad. And so I did get a job, but I wasn't happy in that because I was meant to be an entrepreneur. I just had to figure out how to do it in a way that fit my value system. Sometimes we worry that if we make a lot of money that we don't know what we're going to end up being like. And just the fear of the unknown can hold us back. One of my clients had a lot of trouble charging a fair price for her services and was continually giving away the store. She knew she couldn't keep that up if she was to survive. So in our discovery time, it came to light that her dad was always angry about people who made money. When we hear people we care about being critical of other people who make a lot of money, inside we say, I don't want that to be me. I don't want that person angry at me or other people angry at me. And if we're sensitive kids and we like the approval of our parents and we're seeing them rake somebody else over the coal, we don't want to be like that person they're raking over the coal. So sometimes we're going to shut down. We'll sabotage ourselves and not show up as bright as we want to be or as we're meant to be because we don't want to risk someone's wrath or judgment or criticism or alienation. And that really is something that has to be dealt with. Sometimes we think if I'm too successful, my life is going to change and people aren't going to like me as much. So I ask you, is there someone's disapproval you fear getting if you make too much? Are you afraid people will think you're all about the money? Well, if you aren't, stand on the confidence of that. And decide who you want to be. You've got to be clear where you stand about money. Decide who you want to be. You get to choose. You get to choose. I don't know how many times I can say this. You get to choose. You have the power to be exactly who you want to be with money. Just take the time to know who that is. You know what they say. Money doesn't make you somebody else. It doesn't. It really doesn't. What it does, though, is it just brings out more of who you already are. So if you're already a good, generous person, you get to use money and be that good, generous person. Money is a maximizer. When I was a worrier about money and we came into a lot of it, guess what? It didn't solve my problems. It made me more of a worrier. Money maximizes your current state. But if you're aware of that, you can write your own story. You can be exactly who you want to be. Now, sometimes your money story is this. You project what you think people can afford or not. Do you ever do that? Somebody's in front of you and you're almost sizing them up. And you might not even be aware that you're doing that. So I'm saying this so that your consciousness becomes more aware, okay? So they're in front of you and you're sizing them up. And before you can even say anything about your pricing, you've already decided they can or cannot afford it. Sometimes we think that it's the area we live in, the region. I lived in a small farming community, and basically, I don't know if there was anybody there that even knew what coaching was. In the nearby metropolis, there were many coaches advertising their services, and so I checked out their fees, and they were about, $175 to $200 a session. Now, there was a time when I thought, no way would people pay those prices to me. So before my mindset shift, I made a pittance compared to them. After my mindset shift, I made 2 to 3 times what they did. And I didn't even sell sessions, but packages and results and outcomes. People don't buy sessions. Just as a side note, they buy the results they think those sessions will give them. So you should be clear also. Don't think in terms of sessions, but what will those sessions produce? How will those sessions support the goals of your client, right? Well, the cure is it's not your job to judge or take responsibility for your client, for anybody. Basically, they can take responsibility for their own situation. Now, I worked with many people who were out of work, in transition, not making money. And I used to think, well, how are they going to pay me? And so I take responsibility for their financial situation so they could get the help that they needed. I'd often charge less. I'd put a lot of time and energy into it. I'd over-deliver. But a lot of times we didn't get the results that they needed and wanted because they weren't invested and they weren't taking responsibility. I was like doing all the heavy lifting. Another thing about taking responsibility for people's financial situation is that it's a very disempowering thing to do to them. Do you know that? Let me repeat that. It's a very disempowering thing to do to them. When you take responsibility for someone else's financial situation, what you're saying is that they're inadequate to figure this out. Is that how you want to lead? Is that how you want to start off your coaching? Part of what you're doing is to help them build confidence. But when you take responsibility away from them, you are stealing their confidence. Well, that's not what I wanted to do. And when I realized that that was what was going on, I determined to shift that. Now, something that was crucial to my shifting, that was this. I decided for myself, and I didn't realize how this was going to play into this whole dynamic here, but I decided that for myself, I needed to learn how to be better at manifesting the money I needed whenever I needed money to move myself forward, or for anything I truly cared about. If there wasn't enough money in the bank, then I needed to get good at manifesting. And that sounds a little like woo-woo right now, but somehow or another, when we needed money for whatever reason I was committed to, it came. Learning how to manifest what it is you need is one of the keys to financial freedom. Let me say that again. Learning how to manifest what it is you need and even desire. I actually manifested the money for our trip to Paris last year. I wanted to go, and there was no way I was not going to Paris. But I'm going to tell you something. Our plane, the tickets were already bought. Our plane was scheduled to leave on a Wednesday. The Monday before the Wednesday, I didn't have the money. I was so upset because I was sure that I'd have the money to go. I wanted to take my husband to Paris for our 30th wedding anniversary. It was just so important to me. Well, on that Monday, I prayed, I dug deep, I declared, I stood my ground about that money coming in. And you'll never guess what. By the end of the day, I had 3 times the amount of money that I needed to go on that trip. I'm not going to get into the details, and I know that sounds like it just fell out of the sky, and there was some background work I had done to make that happen. But it starts with a strong intention. It starts with a commitment in your heart and a decision that you're going to do whatever it takes. And I'm not saying prostitute yourself, okay? In a whole variety of ways. There are ways that you can do this that are completely in alignment with your value system. But what this did for me, when I started learning that I could manifest money, and one other note about this. I'm a believer in Jesus. And he was the all-time premier manifester of whatever was needed. Whether it was fish, a load of fish from the boat, whether it's producing a coin for taxes, whether it was healing broken bones, whether it was delivering people from demonic possession, whether it was just freeing people, whether it was producing food in the middle of the desert. He knew how to do it. And I'm a follower. I want to know how to do this too. I want to be that person that knows how to access whatever I need to access, spiritually, emotionally, financially, in whatever way. And I teach this to people, to my clients, how to manifest what it is you desire. It is God's way for each of us. I just want to encourage you about that. Make a decision to learn how to manifest the money that you need so that you never have to say, oh, I can't afford it, or I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't have the money. That happens over and over again. Now, maybe you don't have the money right now, but you can take a stand and say, somehow, some way, it's going to come to me. Somehow, some way, I'm going to have a strategy. Somehow, some way, I've got something to sell, something to offer that is going to be of value to somebody else. I think you can hear my passion in that, because I am very passionate about this. Now, when I learned that I could manifest the money that I needed to move forward, to solve problems, relieve my own pain, fulfill my desires, whatever, then I started to see other people in the same light, with the same access and the same opportunity as me. And lo and behold, guess what? I didn't get any more sob stories. I don't even know how that happened other than energetically, but I didn't get any more sob stories. People stopped expecting things for free from me. And now I never get people, well, almost never, but almost never do I get people who want me to serve them for free. That used to be my norm, by the way. Okay? Now, that doesn't mean I might not, seek God or in my heart, intuition, give away my services sometimes. I do believe in tithing our work. So I always have people that I work with who I am helping because I really believe that they're one of those people that are, even though they don't have the money, they are going to be investors and committed to the work. But as soon as I see they're not, we're done. We're just done. All right? It's part of my give back. But it's not because I fear. It's not because I feel I'm not worth it. It's a whole different reason. So consider that for yourself. Don't take responsibility for others' financial situation and learn how to become a good manifester yourself. Excuse me. Okay, here's another reason I want to examine, another money story saboteur. You feel you are hurting your client or your prospective client when you ask them for money. All right? This is going to totally sabotage you. So let's see if we can be done with this, okay? All right, now this is the belief that you have inside that you're hurting them when you charge for your services, and that it produces a feeling of guilt. Selling isn't doing something to people, it's doing something for them. But do you believe that? Do you really believe that? I had to get to the point of really believing that. People would say it, but I didn't believe it. I thought it was just a manipulative way of, justifying their actions. But I have started to see a few years ago how this actually is true. Selling is not doing something to them, it's doing something for them. It's opening a door for them to get the help that they need at a higher level. People can read books, they can go online, they can get freebies, they can do all these things. You're getting a freebie right here. I put a lot of work into this training, and you're getting it for free. And I hope because it's free, you don't undervalue it, that you actually take it and do something with it. All right? But sometimes we can go through all that and we just delay our progress. When we're constantly getting things for free or expecting things for free, we're actually delaying our progress. Investing is the door to higher level help. Okay, so worrying about victimizing your prospects really comes from you feeling victimized by others. I want you to think about that for a second. Worrying about victimizing your potential prospects comes from you feeling victimized by others, and that's not resolved. Sometimes you might have been in a position where you felt like you really wanted a service, and then you hear the price and you feel like you're getting ripped off. When that happened to me, and it did, my heart would sink. I get this pain in my heart, honestly. And I would complain and think about all the times I gave away my services. Where's the person to help me? Where's the person who's going to extend free to me? And then I'd go into this victim state. Well, I had this revelation one day that I needed to address that. And the way that I had to address that really, again, was forgiveness. There we are again. Forgiveness. Forgiveness, healing, blessing. I thought of all the people who I wanted to work with, who wouldn't work with me for free, and I had to forgive them. Or those who wouldn't make a deal with me, I had to forgive them. And even if I was wrong for thinking that, I had to forgive them to release the wound and make room in my heart and mind for abundance. When we're carrying around these wounds, all right, It's taking up residence in our heart and mind. Residence that is meant for abundance. So you get a choice. Carry the wound around, live in unforgiveness and resentment, or open up that space so abundance can flow in. It's that simple. Now, I didn't go to each of these people personally. It wasn't a big deal like that. I did a lot of journaling, though. And in my journaling, I forgave them. I let them off the hook, and I suggested this earlier. I let them off the hook because I was holding this against them. But I'm just holding myself. You hold something against somebody else, you're holding yourself back from what you really want. So I blessed them and I released them. And that was so freeing for me, and it opened up a door. The more we can stay free of unforgiveness and resentment, and I said this earlier, but it bears repeating, the more we can stay free of unforgiveness and resentment and frustration and those negative emotions, the more open those channels are for us to just receive the clients and the customers that need to work with us. The more open those channels are for us to receive those clients and customers that need to work with us. All right. One more. Let's tackle one more here. And this is kind of a sticky wicket, but I'm going to take a stab at this because I think it affects a lot of people. It might affect you. Another reason that people, maybe you, I know it was for me, have difficulty with money is that we have a religious mindset. Now, what does that mean? It means that your religion and the dogma of your religion is dictating your position on money and finances. All right? We want to be careful of this. A lot of people go around saying that money is the root of all evil. Well, really, the Bible says it's the love of money that's the root of all evil. And you know what? I love money, and I don't think I'm evil. However, do you love money to the exclusion of everything? Is money your God? I don't want that. I love money and what it can do and the freedom it can buy, and allows me to have access to a lot of things I wouldn't normally have access to. But I do not want money to be my God. I don't want money to dictate what I do or I don't do. All right? There's another saying that says it's better to give than to receive. Or that you don't want to be proud or arrogant. We perceive that money will make us greedy. Or we perceive that money makes us proud and arrogant. That's a religious, energy, let's put it that way, or spirit that is causing you to believe that. It's kind of infiltrated your mind. Some of this started back in, I think the 1500s. I'm not positive that was that exact decade, but I think the 1500s, not decade, but century. St. Francis of Assisi was a man who had a spiritual experience, and his background was he came from, his parents were wealthy merchants. And in order to be close to God, Francis thought that he needed to strip himself of everything and live a life of poverty. And so there was this one movie that illustrates this so well. It was called Brother, Sun, and Sister Moon. And I remember watching it in college, and oh my gosh, I just sobbed thinking, it made me feel so guilty because I wanted to be successful. And here he was, a man giving up all this monetary success and stripping off his clothes in the middle of the street and walking naked in kind of blustery weather. And he ended up starting a monastery and had a lot of followers. And they were beautiful people who had come from rich and wealthy families and wanted to live this simple life and wear burlap bags and robes and eat off the land. And, that was esteemed so highly. So, the religious spirit really says that poverty is to be glorified. There's more glory in being poor, and wealth is to be suspected. It's suspicious. I have a client who makes her living in real estate. And now she has a lot of people who want to work with her because she's a really highly conscientious person, and she leaves no stone unturned in getting them what they want. I mean, she works hard for her clients. But far too often, something would just kind of happen where she didn't end up making the sale or she didn't get the commission. And I'm telling you, she deserved it. Well, one day after one of these occurrences, she said to me, I had to give up my commission to help someone else, just like usual. Well, then it occurred to me that she was creating this dynamic from this long-held martyr complex with which she had grown up. She had developed this paradigm. Now, she didn't do it consciously. This was totally unwittingly. But the paradigm was this. You win, I lose. I don't like it. It isn't fair, but isn't that noble of me? Her only compensation ended up being the good feelings she experienced by working like a dog to benefit someone else, without asking or expecting anything in return. I mean, she actually believed, too, that you do good things come back to you. And you know what? They do. But not if you think that you don't deserve it. Then you'll throw up a block to that whole paradigm. So once this was revealed and presented to her, now she's got the awareness. She's able to challenge the paradigm and decide if it was okay for her to lose while someone else won. She wisely decided it was not. And so she put her stake in the ground. You know, you've probably heard it a million times in this whole training about putting your stake in the ground, because I'm a big, big believer in that. But she put her stake in the ground for, I win, you win, we both win. And then she accepted nothing less. She created the affirmation, I create winning situations for us both. You know, that's how your conversations should be when you are talking to your clients or prospective clients. I create winning situations for us both. Well, everything shifted for her that day. And it did take some time before she consistently walked in that confidence, but her first step was to take a strong stand for herself and her prospective clients. You win, I lose happens a lot in our pricing. We want it to be such a good deal for others that we create a losing scenario for ourselves. Being okay with you when I lose is an outcome of feeling guilty about taking care of yourself. It says, I don't matter, and it isn't right for me to think about what my needs are, or it's selfish, or it's greedy for me to desire this sale or contract or this work. Oh, it's better for them if they use someone else that's less expensive. I'll let them go. What you're really saying is, compared to this person in front of me, I'm not worthy. My needs and expertise don't matter. We need to see and challenge these paradigms. So I believe the cure for a religious mindset is seek God for your own personal stance. But when you do, if what comes up for you isn't abundant, it's probably not God. You know, Jesus said, I've come to give you life and life more abundantly. And that doesn't exclude money. Even if you don't believe he was God incarnate, most people will agree that he was wise. So seek God yourself. Come up with your own stance. There's another passage in the Old Testament, Deuteronomy 8:18, where God says that he has given us the power to produce wealth. So let me ask you, why would God give us the power to produce wealth if we weren't supposed to have it? And there's one more proverb I'd like to pass on. The blessing of the Lord makes a man rich, and he adds no sorrow to it. We are supposed to be rich with the blessing of God through the work we do, without all the struggle and the toil. I'm all for that. Are you? Bottom line, You have to work on cultivating an abundant heart and mind. Fill your mind and heart daily with positive, heart-expanding materials. And believe me, once you start doing that, you get addicted to it. It's wonderful to fill your mind because it's all joyful stuff. It's all happy stuff. And it'll take your mind off and slowly but surely transform those negative things. It takes your mind off the negative and it just helps you to stay in the positive. And we need that energy to move forward. So I'm about ready to conclude this training, but before I do, I have to say, I would love to support you in your great work. I hope you've had some breakthroughs and are committed to taking action. If personal mentoring is your next step, I would love to chat with you about helping you convert your expertise to cash. So together, what can we do? Well, together, we can clarify your identity, your worth, and your big why. We can identify any and all limiting beliefs that are holding you back in any way. We can identify your disempowering money story and get you a new one. Let's do that. We can assess or design your clear and compelling programs for maximum perceived value. I can give you knowledgeable feedback on happy pricing for your programs. I can teach you how to position yourself for optimum attraction of your ideal client, as well as having the energy you need to do that. And together we can develop an inspired action plan and help you stay accountable. So if this is the right time for you, book your discovery session with me today. And there's a link on this slide or this video. I'm not sure that it will actually be hyperlinked that you can click on it, but maybe stop the slides and write it down and book some time with me. I would love to hear from you. And let me know how you like this training. That would be a big help to me too. So God bless you. I hope everything that you've learned sinks in and that you can go back and listen to it again, review it again, and let it sink in even deeper. Immersion is the name of the game. Well, this is Marianne Amen. And this was Charged with Confidence and Convert Your Expertise to Cash. Brought to you by Create Your Magnificent Life Now. Bye-bye.